episode 1. Do you want to introduce it or shall I, honey?
Yeah, so it's the big title. Is Ford doom or heading for a boom? We want to know.
And of course, we're going to be talking data, so let's do it. So there's a lot of talk on YouTube these days. It's pretty simple. I can just head over to YouTube and put in, there's JCCR Adventures, our brother or sister channel. Is Ford doomed? I could probably put in is Ford going to be bankrupt? And there'd be things coming up. Now, Ford in crisis here. Ford is doomed, apparently, according to the Gear Gazette. A lot of, anything with the word tech in it or, velocity, the real reason Ford stopped making cars. That's interesting. There's one title from someone that I generally really like watching, but I feel they might be embellishing a little or just confused, saying that Ford doesn't want to make Mavericks, and that's just not the case. Ford is making a ton of Mavericks. Ford had a record month in the month of May, making 11,051 Mavericks produced in the month of the month of May. It's the Maverick month, folks. The month of May, they made 11,051 produced Mavericks. Now 50% of capacity can be for hybrids. The remaining goes to EcoBoost, of course. Now 79% of people want a hybrid. Only 50% can be produced, but still that's a huge, basically production of the hybrid has, if we go back to the original months, you could say has gone up 100-fold because they're making next to no hybrids at first. A little problem, most likely getting good quality batteries. They probably got batteries and then shipped them back. So that was a bit of a story. And back then I was saying, don't worry, folks. Ford isn't doomed, and you are going to get a Ford Maverick hybrid. Now, from what I've been seeing coming into the dealership, if you want a hybrid, you're really lucky if your hybrid shows up in under a year. Our first hybrid did show up, and that person had only waited a few months. They had ordered actually in it was ridiculous. They had ordered
Just
in
after me, yes.
just after you, September,
2021.
and then they ended up getting it. What was it? Basically 2 months later, and it was, we couldn't understand it. But then after that, production and delivery of the hybrid just completely dried up. So there's a lot of worry that Ford was doomed because they weren't making these. Now there's worry that Ford is doomed because apparently they don't want to make Mavericks, and that's just not the case. The facts here is that Ford has one factory, not even for the Maverick. It's the Bronco Sport and the Maverick, and I said it last week. That kind of, going into this, when you're making a project, you can't just assume everything's going to be a huge success. If so, you pour tons of money into something, and if it's not a success, you completely burn your company. Speaking of burning the company, another reason a lot of YouTubers and journalists are saying that Ford is in a heck of a lot of trouble, that they're doomed, they're going bankrupt, is because of the $2 billion, $3 billion loss on the EV project. Now, EV, they've made their own division. Obviously, the gasoline division is profitable. The fleet division is profitable, and the EV division is at a complete loss. Now, they split those into divisions because they now want to be able to really put pressure on the EV division to say you need to become profitable. So, the Mach-E F-150 Lightning in years to come, there's going to be less excess in wires, easier configurations, less build configurations, and that's just true for the Ford altogether, helping Ford probably move towards a boom, profitability, stock price increase, which the last week, Ford stock rose 5%. A little bit of evidence for a boom right there. I bought Ford, so I'm happy that I got that 5% cashed out, and will probably cash back in after I see how the next month in the stock market goes. But I think right now Ford is actually on a boom. Yes, they've lost billions. They're going to lose $3 billion this year on their EV division. They're going to make billions on fleet division, as well as the traditional Ford Blue Oval division, the gasoline division. They're going to make billions. They are going to lose money on the electronic, the EV division, but they're going to be making money in a few years. It's 2023, folks, and they're going to be profitable with the EVs by 2025 or 2026, 2 to 3 years. And this isn't a coincidence. Blue Oval City is going to be up and running. That's 6 square miles of EV production, not just assembly. They're going to be making batteries, recycling batteries. They're going to be zero net carbon. So I guess they'll be making their own electricity. They're going to be reusing scraps when they cut things up. So it's going to be very advanced 6 square miles. There'll be thousands of jobs produced in the USA. So why YouTubers want to destroy Ford and do everything they can to discourage you from buying a Ford is beyond me. Ford,
just to have some views, like always. Because they just create the Maverick, and why did they don't want to make it anymore? It makes no sense.
what happens?
They just created it.
Yeah, they just created it, but they didn't know in advance if it was going to be a huge success. And some people say, "Oh, that's stupid." Of course they knew. No, they didn't know. You look at the Honda Ridgeline, and for the last over a decade, they sold roughly 30,000 units per year. You look at the Toyota Tacoma selling 200,000 units per year, but then you have the Ranger that they had to cut out because in 2011 sales weren't that great, and it needed about $8 billion into it to really modernize it, to make it, quality, good enough for us. So Ford cut it out. They invested the money in the F-150 quality, and new technology, new frame technology, new powertrain technology. The F-150 sales went through the roof because they're just offering a great product. They brought the Ranger back and kind of borrowed from Europe. Now they've properly invested in the Ranger. The 2024 Ranger, I think, is a 2 thumbs up, huge buy recommendation on my part, and I think it's going to be a good competitor to the Tacoma. I think it's going to be probably second place, but a good second place. And I prefer it over the Tacoma. I have news about that later on, a little bit of Ford Ranger news, but I really think Ford is actually going towards a boom. Velocity, you're wrong. They're not doomed. Car questions answered. Ford, you're wrong when you say that Ford doesn't want to make Mavericks. They've increased production dramatically, but they still have to deal with the fact that they have one factory, and the F-150 has 2 huge factories that have been running for decades. So when you turn on the water valves of production, the valves of production, you have 2 huge factories that have been producing these for decades at an incredible rate. Yes, there are F-150s available in yards, because they can make a million of them a year. Each factory can make like 500,000 F-150s. And the Maverick factory can make about 300,000 units per year. And they've got to divide that between the Maverick and the Ford Bronco Sport, which is still a popular vehicle. And surprisingly, I've done a review on it. And I started off the review kind of saying, well, my personal thoughts prior, the 1.5 won't be enough. The 1.5 was enough, and the 2-liter turbo is an absolute blast. Just took another test drive in a Bronco Sport Badlands today. My parents own one, but I didn't go around, beating my parents' vehicle. I went out for a test drive and loved the 2-liter turbo. 250 horsepower, 277 pound-feet of glorious torque on a 3,500-pound unit. Thing goes great. The power to rate ratio is fantastic. So Ford is in for a huge boom. That's what's going on. And I've got actual numbers. I say that I always try to, always want to have data, not just, kind of a blindly trust me. So let's get to this through here. Here's some data. Ford, #1 ranked by, volume share. In the first quarter of 2023, #1 in sales. In second place, Toyota. So Ford, 12.5% of the market. Toyota, 11.8% of the market. Now, are retail sales slowing down a little? Yes, retail sales, there's less hunger towards the prices. That's good, and I'll explain why in a moment. Ford, in the meantime, has compensated that with fleet sales. And here's my market outlook. You can only compensate slowing down retail sales with, pumping more towards the fleet. You can only do that for a certain amount of time. Once fleet actually has the vehicles they've been clamoring for and deserve to get, you don't want both fleet begging for vehicles and retail begging for vehicles, because what happens? That's basically what these YouTubers are saying. Well, customers aren't begging and dying and breaking down the doors and paying way over MSRP anymore, so Ford's doomed. No, folks, we're going back to normal. Yeah, there you go.
Finally!
I didn't even tell you what this show was going to be about until 15 minutes before, and you can figure it out on your own from what I'm saying. So I don't understand why so many YouTubers can't just see the simple truth that we're going back to normal. And the good news is normal doesn't mean that there'll be, full yards and we're going to have still very high interest and high prices and over MSRP, but that there'll then be units available. No, that's not normal. Normal is going back to reasonable interest rates, some rebates, and available vehicles to actually choose when you walk in the lot, which is your preferred method of shopping.
Totally. It's easier and you know how long you will wait. When it's available, you can have it right now. I like that.
And
I'm happy that things are going back to normal. We cannot stay like that forever. It's too much crazy with the MSRP and the interest rate. It's not normal.
I can definitely see in 2023 that Ford has when it comes to marketing know-how, they've got the brains. I'm very impressed. I saw Ford this month have, in my area, there's a $3,000 rebate only on a lease. But with, let's say an F-150, like 7% interest rate. And then if you went and purchased, there's no rebate, but 1.99% interest. So Ford's seeing what's going to move units. They're testing. And then they learned that, okay, well, not a whole lot of people want to take the lease when the interest rate's at 7%, which really, comparatively speaking, isn't that bad. The overall market is around 10%. And I say around 10% because used interest rate is higher than new. Canada versus US, different interest rates, but it's around 10. But new interest rate is at 11 in the United States and 13 for used vehicles, whereas here in Canada, it's the new is, high nines, and the used is 10, 11%, 11 or 12%. I don't have the exact data in front of me this time, but different interest rates, different countries. But basically you could say the average new rate across the two countries is 10%. Now Ford did this test and immediately corrected. Throughout the month of June, they've seen that not a whole lot of F-150s have been getting leased, and people have been jumping on that lower interest of the purchase. So what has Ford done? Well, starting tomorrow, they're going to drop the interest rate by 2%.
Wow.
And they're going to increase the rebate. So if my recollection is good, rebate is going to $5,000, and there's a 2% decrease in interest rate. I think that probably is the sweet spot. If you offer, let's say, 4.99 interest, so the interest isn't great, but it's not horrible either. It's that's not that bad. And you're getting a nice $5,000 rebate. Well, I think you're making the most amount of people happy. The rebate seekers are happy, as well as the people looking for good interest. And remember, with a lease with Ford, you can do what is called, here's a trick to save thousands. You can do what is called a multiple deposit. It's essentially like loaning money to Ford, and it'll drop the interest up to 1.5%. So you can have a 1.5% interest rate reduction. Your sales consultant, if they know what they're doing, they're going to understand this, and they will immediately be able to tell you exactly how much interest you save. And if they can't, well, you'll see it in your price. Your monthly is going to go down. You do the math. If you're on a 48-month lease, you see that you're saving, let's say, $25 times 48 months. Well, 2% on an F-150, you're going to save about $3,000 if you give roughly, it's advancing 10 monthly payments. So let's say roughly $10,000. You get to save $3,000 over the course of the loan, and the money is guaranteed to come back to you. If you have an accident, if it gets stolen, if you change brands because whatever, you fall in love with a Jeep 4xe, whatever it may be, you will get your money back as soon as your name isn't on those registration. So very good to know. But be careful. If you trade in at another dealership and they get your amount owing, well, your amount owing is going to include your multiple deposit. So it might seem like it's a great time to trade because, you're not upside down. You're not refinancing negative equity. But you have to remember that amount financing, the salesperson probably isn't experienced enough, likely to know that amount, the remaining amount to clear the loan is including that money you advanced at the beginning. So if they're really good, they're going to say, well, this is your amount owing with your $10,000 in there. If I give you back your $10,000, well, your amount owing is $10,000 more, and in which case, let's say you then owe 50, but your trade's 40. A good sales consultant will tell you, well, you owe 50 and your vehicle's worth 40. A bad, either dumb or dishonest, one of the dangerous D's, the 3D, the double D danger. If they're dumb or dangerous, well, if they're dangerous, they're just going to deliberately tell you, hey, you owe, your amount owing is, well, they'll just lie. They'll say your vehicle's worth 50 and you owe 50, life is good, you're break even, and hope you've forgotten about your 10,000 that you gave back. Or a lot of people just assume, oh, well, Ford will give me back my 10. And then you're waiting around, you have your new vehicle, a few months would go by, or a few weeks, you call up Ford and Ford's like, well, no, your amount owing included, your amount left to pay off included that $10,000 you gave on a multiple deposit. So there can be a bit of dangerous confusion with there, but Ford not doomed. I think Ford is heading for a boom. They've got They've got a partnership with Google that I think will be very interesting. They've got technology in regards to faster charging coming along. And they also have some new battery technology in regards to lithium phosphate iron batteries, which will charge at basically full speed from 0% all the way to 100%. I think making plugins with, medium-sized batteries, let's say 20 kilowatt batteries, I think that would be the sweet spot and be the best vehicle powertrain option on the market. Let me know in the comments section. Are you all in on gas, all in on EVs, or do you think plug-in is the way to go? And if you say why, well, then you're just giving us some bonus intel. Love it when people explain their thought process. So let us know in the comments section.